What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Zach and Pat Show. I'm Zach.
I'm Pat.
This is the show about manhood, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and the mentality it takes to be successful at those things. And we'll probably sprinkle in some helpful real estate advice too, because that's what Pat and I do. You know, guys, life can be tough. We can go through some things and struggle at times, but this is the show to let you know that you're not alone. So if you're someone out there going through any of these things, this is the show for you. All right, guys, let's talk about something we all need. High quality, comfortable, stylish clothing that actually holds up in real life. Whether you're grinding at work, hitting the gym, or just hanging out, the Normal brand has you covered. I've been rocking their gear, and let me tell you, it's not your average clothing line. They've nailed it perfect with the perfect blend of durability, comfort, style, whether it's a go-to rugged Henley, a hoodie, a button-down that doesn't make you feel like a stiff, the Normal brand is where it's at. The best part is you can support the show while upgrading your wardrobe. Just hit the link in the description below, check out their collection. Trust me, once you try it, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. The Normal brand, made for real life, built to last. Now go check them out.
Shout out to our friends over at Captain Beard Co. Guys, if you are looking for beard care products, shampoo, conditioner, body wash, give Captain Beard Co. a try. They have this unbelievable beard butter, balm, oils, and then it smells amazing. Ladies, if you're looking for something for your men as a gift to help with their grooming, check them out. Also, if you guys are looking to just set the mood one night, candles, unbelievably smelling candles, made with all natural ingredients here locally to St. Louis. Give them a shot. Also, while you're there, use the promo code Zach and Pat for 10% off your purchase.
Hey there, guys. We really appreciate you checking out the Zach and Pat Show. If you can obviously tell, we are a newer podcast, but one way we're really trying to grow the show is trying to get up the amount of subscribers we have. So, you know, if you're watching the show and you're getting something out of it, we'd really appreciate it if you could click that subscribe button. That would help us out a ton. Please click that button. And now back to the show. We have a very special guest in studio. I'm very excited to sit down and talk with him, the owner of St. Charles MMA, the great and powerful Mike ROGERS. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on here. For the people that don't know, give us a little. Who is Mike ROGERS?
Well, I own St. Charles MMA, so we do boxing and kickboxing and wrestling and jiu-jitsu and MMA. I'm also a roofer. So I've been roofing since I got out of college, and I don't know. You have to ask me questions. I'm not good at bios here.
You're all good, man. So, you know, from my understanding, you're kind of one of the OGs here in St. Louis of the guys training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think. It just lucked out to run into Rodrigo Vaghi, who was basically, his mom had he's from Brazil, and his mom had a restaurant in St. Louis. So, he moved here to be with her and opened his own gym, and that was like 96.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you've been training since 96?
I think I started in 97.
97.
Yeah.
But you were originally a wrestler, is that right?
Yeah.
You wrestled in college?
I wrestled in high school and college, and then after college, I started jiu-jitsu.
Okay. Wait, and you're from here originally? Like
I'm from St. Louis. I went to Oakville High School.
Oh,
heck yeah. Me too.
All right. Yeah.
I grew up in Oakville. My parents still live off Christopher. So
Yeah.
I was off Cripple Creek.
Okay. Yeah, you guys are close to each other.
Oh, yeah. Right down the street.
I've been there a lot every day for the last month.
Oh, really? Doing roofs?
Yeah, doing
roofs. They got smacked over there.
Yeah.
My parents, they have to do all four sides of their house, and the siding and the roof. They got hit really hard over there.
Yeah. I love Oakville.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's great. And I'm a lot of friends there still, but I love St. Charles too. So
yeah, is that where you live out in St. Charles?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you wrestled at Oakville. From there, where did that take you?
I went to Southern Illinois, Edwardsville.
Okay.
Wrestled there, and got out of school. I had a teaching degree. I was a school teacher at McClure High School for 4 years, and then after the 4 years, I just decided I didn't want to be locked. I wanted to make my own schedule basically. So I stopped teaching and started roofing more and opening the gym up.
Yeah. What kind of led you to opening up the gym?
I don't know. There wasn't any gyms back then. It wasn't like 2006. I mean, if there was a gym, they're gone now. Besides Rodrigo's and Jesse Fenney's gym.
Really?
Yeah.
Those are the only ones that are left from when you.
Yeah, pretty much. Everybody, I I think the hit squad opened up a little after me.
Yeah, I think they were 07 or 08, something like that.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. We had Kyle in here a couple weeks ago. We were talking a lot about the hit squad and stuff.
And yeah. And now it's like every corner. There's like 15 jiu-jitsu schools in St. Charles.
Yeah.
When I opened up, there was
place.
none.
Really?
It was me. I think JW had a gym, but he wasn't. I think he was maybe. Yeah, he might have been there before me. Actually, he was definitely there before me. I don't know if he opened a gym before me.
So what? And so you went? Did you teach wrestling or anything at McClure North while you were there?
I was at McClure, regular McClure.
Oh, McClure.
Yeah, I was a wrestling coach.
Okay.
There, and then I coached at Merrimack College for 2 years.
Okay.
And I opened my gym after that. So I quit teaching in 2004.
Okay.
2002.
Okay.
So when you first started training, like you joined Voggy's gym,
Yeah.
and then I guess was that how soon after he opened did you said he started?
I think I was like maybe a year or a little under a year since when he opened up.
So
I don't know.
One of the first students, really.
Yeah.
Or one, probably in that core group of.
I'm probably his oldest student that is still there.
Yeah.
So
So how long from the time you started training with him did you open your own school?
I think like 10 years.
Okay, so it was a while.
Yeah, it was about 10 years exactly.
So then when you started training jiu-jitsu, you eventually transitioned to MMA? Is that how it kind of went? Or
I think everything was a hobby.
Okay.
Doing jiu-jitsu, MMA. So I didn't really train. I just, as a fighter, it was a hobby. I didn't have it wasn't like now. It was totally different. There was no first of all, there was no internet. So you couldn't keep up with it. You had to watch Black Belt magazine or figure out if there was going to be a pay-per-view, with like extreme fighting or hook and shoot. But yeah, it was different because you weren't getting paid really. So it wasn't like now.
Yeah.
So I just kind of treated it like a hobby and did my regular job. So I was a jiu-jitsu player whenever there was a tournament for jiu-jitsu, and I was a fighter whenever
everything was locally. You pretty much stayed local.
I got out. I fought in California and Reno, Nevada, and Canada. Most of the stuff was local. I mean, it wasn't. I think I had 20 fights, 17 fights. I don't even remember.
Oh yes, you had a lot.
That's a lot.
Are those all amateur, professional? How did that go back then?
Well, there was no such thing as there was no amateur. They weren't sanctioned by. It wasn't a sanctioned sport, so
really?
you just kind of did it. There was no rules, Some states would allow it, some states wouldn't allow it. If you went up to Iowa, there's no rules. You went to Illinois, there was no punching in the head on the ground. Missouri didn't allow it at all.
No punching in the head on the ground.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so it was just, it was definitely not like today when everything's sanctioned, and what's going on with it was mostly just a hobby, and you didn't know if UFC was going to be big at the time. You didn't know,
Right, it was so early.
it was there was others, shows that were pretty much as big as them.
Right.
They just didn't make it.
Right, and UFC is just still here, 30 years later.
Well,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
here and probably, but bigger than baseball, not as big as football, but bigger than like hockey and basketball. I think. Yeah,
and it's the only sport I really pay attention to.
Yeah. So there you go.
Same. Yeah. Hockey and UFC for me.
That's
Yeah.
That's really the only thing I pay attention to at all.
So-
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah. So, I mean, you've been doing this for a really long time. How have you seen just the culture around jiu-jitsu and MMA change since you originally started?
Well, people know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, so even that's a big difference.
Mhm.
Is when you'd say, "What do? You fight UFC, you fight martial." They don't know what it is. They didn't know what jiu-jitsu was. They'd think jiu-jitsu was like karate.
Yeah, they still
Yeah,
people do.
still-
I mean, I'll
but
be
it's-
honest. Like my like I talked to like my aunt or something, and that's what she thinks.
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's pretty mainstream. I mean, back then it was nobody knew what it was. If you knew who the Gracies were, it was like, I mean, no one knew who the Gracies were.
Right.
So, yeah. What did you ask me?
How have you seen the sport
Yeah,
change?
it's
over
changed.
this?
I mean, there's money too, big time money.
Yeah.
Television. I mean, it's totally different. And the other thing was back then you could fight, like UFC didn't really sign you to like a contract where you could have losses and get on UFC. You could, they would, guys would train, Gregs would fight on UFC, then they would go fight on a local show, and then they would go to Russia and fight something. It was different because now everybody's locked down and going to the UFC.
They
and
sign contracts for their stuck.
Yeah. So you could be, back then there wasn't that many fighters either. So
yeah,
there wasn't many opportunities. It was, just everything just got bigger. That's the biggest. It just got bigger. Everything got bigger.
Now I've heard of some crazy stories of like a lot of like early MMA where people were fighting in bars or fighting like in like fields or like anything. Like I've always heard kind of crazy stories like that. Did you ever experience anything like that?
No, and I think people used to tell stories about me doing that stuff, and I'm like, what are you even talking about? They used to call it like pit fighting, and
where like, there was we're fighting on dirt.
Yeah, I think there probably people were, and I think they do it now, but I don't think I never did.
Yeah.
So I think probably now there's probably high school kids that go meet in fields and film it and put it on TV, and they train for a couple weeks and they're like, I can fight, and they go, and I think that happens more now probably than it used to.
Really?
Probably, yeah. Oh, I don't really think that was really as big of a thing as people talk about, but I never did it.
Yeah.
You'd think now, like you mentioned, there's gyms on every corner. You would think that they just pop into a gym and get some training in that way.
Yeah.
Well, I think people start and then they get like they get into it, or maybe they start feeling kind of good and like, I'm going to take a fight, and they're maybe only been training, couple months or something, which is pretty early in my opinion, to be willing to step into a cage with somebody who's going to try to.
You'd be amazed at how many
out.
people want to do that, and say, hey, chill out, man. You gotta, you gotta learn how to fight before you jump in that ring, because, and those are the guys that you learn to, that we want to fight.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So,
well, I think I saw a stat that said like men grossly overestimate their ability to fight by like 400%. And
I think so. Yeah, I think a lot of the, especially guys that are athletic and they've never really, and I think I like a lot of MMA guys might underrate themselves because they don't really realize, like, wow, if they go in and train with another guy who's a fighter every day, and then they look at another guy who does a lot of big talk, they might think, well, this guy might know something, so they might underestimate they would crush the guy,
right?
And then the opposite, like what you're saying, a lot of guys that think they're
tough shit,
think they're really tough, and they're roided up or lifting weights, doing a lot of weightlifting, and they're not nearly as tough as you think.
Right. Just because you can bench 300 pounds doesn't mean you can throw a proper punch, or how to do anything when the fight hits the ground. You're so right on that, because it's like I'll have like a really tough training session where I'll go train with a bunch of our black belts and just get my ass kicked, and I'll be like, man, I fucking suck at this. And then all of a sudden I'll roll the next day with like a 2-stripe white belt. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, but sometimes these guys there's guys that are just tough. They don't know anything, and they're just can fight. They can just flat out fight. They got the instincts. Mm-hmm. So you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You're better off to stay out of fights, and because you don't know what you're going to get into,
especially nowadays. And I mean, how often do you I'm sure you can think of several people that you look at them and then they don't look physically intimidating,
right? But
they're like very, very dangerous. Because I know plenty of guys like that just by looking at them, you would not know.
Kyle Watson.
Yeah, I mean,
he doesn't look tough.
No, I mean, he takes his shirt off. He's in pretty good shape, but he doesn't look like a big, like, imposing guy. But he's a pleasant.
He's a pleasant guy.
He's
not
very
like
soft-spoken,
right? So that's one of the guys. Like, guys like I had a guy that used to train with me named Matt Ricehouse. He looked like a chump, but he was so good. He quit. He quit. In his prime, but he was, he beat Randy Couture. He was 4-1 in Strikeforce, and then when the Strikeforce got dropped, they didn't pick him up in UFC, so he quit. But he only had one. He lost to Bobby, the King, Bobby. I can't remember his name. Bobby something.
Bobby Green.
Bobby Green. He lost to Bobby Green by decision, and he outstruck him, but he just wasn't. He was a 145-pounder fighting 155, and wasn't. But anyway, that guy, he definitely wouldn't want. He doesn't look like he could fight, but
but
You definitely wouldn't want to.
No,
Your best, but I wouldn't want to fight them myself.
no,
so.
just nowadays you just never know what people know. It's you just never know. It's getting into a fight on the street is very dangerous.
Also, you don't even know if they got what they got in their pocket.
100%. That's even
That's
more.
the more important,
especially here in Missouri.
I figured. Yeah, so that's you don't want to get in. I tell my son, like, just don't even get in fights. Just walk away. Like, you never know what they're gonna bring to a fight. You know, a knife or a gun,
or who else they've got,
and then you're dead.
Right. Jiu-jitsu doesn't really work against multiple attackers.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you can that's fine too. Like, if it's multiple attackers and you just get beat up, that's one thing. But if you get shot and killed, it's another thing.
Yeah.
100%.
You know.
Yeah. Well, what ultimately led you to opening up the gym?
I think it was just for fun.
Okay.
You know, I thought it would be for fun. You know, it'd be something different. And
because I guess there's nothing really like that out there at the time, especially out
there wasn't really anything in St. Louis. There was, there was gyms, but there was no complete gyms at the time. There was either a jiu-jitsu gym or like a karate gym or a boxing gym, you know, and actually we weren't either. You know, I thought I was going to be just a jiu-jitsu gym, but Rodrigo kept sending all the guys up. He's like, "Oh, you want to go do MMA? Go with Mike." And I'm like, "All right." Well, you know, it worked out. I was happy to get him, but yeah, that wasn't my first intention.
Now, what were those early years like with the gym and it being such an unknown sport, and opening up a jiu-jitsu or MMA gym?
Well, 2007, it started when I opened up there. It started to become more, you know, it was more mainstream. That was after the Ultimate Fighter. Yeah,
I think that's kind of what really.
That was right at the same time, I think.
Okay. Yeah, 07 is when the first year of the Ultimate Fighter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was way different from the 10 years before when I started. You know, people started knowing. So it was, you know, it's never been a huge moneymaker, but it's all about fun. Yeah. It's all about just my enjoyment to have. You know?
Yeah. So have you been roofing the whole time, or is it like the whole time that you've been?
Yeah, well, I used to do the roof, the actual installation. Now I just
manage
it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, getting up on those roofs is probably not the.
I get up and walk around it after it's done.
Yeah.
Make sure they did everything right, and I'll leave.
Well, I'm sure you guys are busy.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Way to put in the work.
You know, sometimes there's something that needs to be addressed. They may not know how to do it. You know, something they haven't seen before.
Sure.
Their crew or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are crazy busy right now with all the storms we've had. I mean, I feel like I know a couple buddies that do roofing, and they just seem to be busier than they've ever been.
I'm so tired. I don't even know. Like, I haven't been to the gym, you know, and I go to the gym every night, but I'm in and out.
Yeah.
Even with the, even having, well, I'm not really motivated to coach right now. I'm a little bit. I coach my son. So
okay.
I bring my son up there and coach him, but I'm not super because I'm so busy otherwise. And I have good coaches already. So I'm not there coaching as much as I used to.
Yeah. So other than this season, do you train often, or like what's your training like these days?
I lift weights sometimes. So what I do like these, you know, the every minute on the minute thing. So
we did a workout like that yesterday.
So I'm like, I want to lift weights. I don't want to be here lifting weights. I just want to get it done.
Yeah.
So I'll do 2 exercises for 10 minutes. I'm out of there in like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I do it 3 times a week. And I do like one day I'll do squat and shoulder press. The next day I'll do power cleans and bench. Then I'll do a deadlift and I don't know.
Just something.
Like a rows.
Yeah,
I do rows. So then I'll just repeat it. If I miss a day a week, I just
make it up the next day or something.
I don't make it up.
No.
I just go on to the next. I just keep it in order, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, what are some lessons that you learned from jiu-jitsu and MMA that's helped carry over into the entrepreneur side of things with your roofing business as well as the gym?
I didn't learn anything entrepreneurial wise.
No.
At the gym, I wouldn't think, you know. I don't really look at it as a business too much anymore. I just kind of, it needs to be above water. I'm not going to invest money in the gym anymore. If it makes money, I'll put money back into it, but I don't, it's more of it's definitely just a hobby.
Okay.
And having my son like it, that means I'm going to keep it open.
And how old's your son?
14.
14. So was that 8th grade?
Yep.
Okay.
Nice. And does he wrestle?
Yeah.
Cool.
He does. He's not a world beater, but he's decent, pretty good. But he likes it, so that's all that matters to me. So he likes it. I wouldn't close it anyway, but that's a little bit more motivation to keep it going.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I've got my hands in so many different things, fight wise. Being in, we got to not like just most gyms are just jiu-jitsu or just boxing or just kickboxing. They just do one thing, and we're doing we won Golden Gloves this year.
That's awesome.
Congrats. There's two different divisions. There's novice and there's open. We won the novice. We never really placed in the open because once our guys are good enough to do the open, they're good enough to fight pro MMA. There's a level in boxing. And if you're good enough to be an open boxer, you're probably ready to definitely be a pro MMA fighter as far as your striking skills.
Cool. Well, what exactly does it take to win Golden Gloves? I'm not a boxing guy, so
it's a tournament.
Okay.
So you just so you have guys, they sign up, and then you fight. If you win, it's like a high where you into wrestling.
Yeah, I wrestled in high school.
Like state.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So it's like a big tournament, and I guess you have multiple boxing fights in a day?
No, not in the same day, but
okay.
We'll do I'm on the board too of Golden Gloves, so we do one depends how many people sign up. It's usually 2 weekends. So they do the first weekend, it's 2 days, and then the second weekend 2 days. It used to be 2 different tournaments, the novice and the open. Now we got them together because it's just not as big as it used to be. Like I guess from up until the 90s, there would be two different tournaments, and now it's not quite as big as it used to be.
Do you think just because more people are switching over to the MMA and jiu-jitsu side of things than actually just the straight up boxing?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like boxing, truthfully, is getting bigger now.
Really?
It's much bigger than it was when I started MMA. There's a lot more people will come to the gym and just want to box than they used to.
Really?
I mean, boxing's gotten a lot bigger. Yeah, I mean,
makes sense. I mean, I can see that. I just feel like martial arts in general has just gotten so popular. I mean, I think has to do with from the UFC. I mean, with just how big that's gotten. I mean, look how big. I just since I've started training jiu-jitsu, like I started training in 2018. So like about almost 7 years now, and just like the growth that I've seen in the last 7 years has been crazy. Because like we were talking, this was last year or the year before that, but we were talking about the local Fuji tournament here. And apparently, like the year before, there had been like 150 or 175 people that had signed up, and then the following year there was over 500. Like in just 1 year, it was just that big of a jump in like the registration. So, I mean, that's just
those tournaments they also go up and down. It seems like I think there becomes like a saturation. Like next month there's a Naga and a AGF in St. Louis. So they won't do great because they're
back-to-back
competing against each other.
AGF and Fuji used to always somehow be in the same month as well.
Yeah, I need to spread them out.
Well, I mean, and you're not going to get those guys to like coordinate stuff,
right? No,
I wouldn't think.
No way.
They're
going to try to
competitors.
compete.
So
they're like, no, we're not going to do better than the Naga. We're going to do better than Naga for sure, or whatever, or whatever it's going to be. They're just going to. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it would be smarter for them if they would, get the other guy's schedule and be like, okay, we'll not do St. Louis the same weekend. We'll stagger them, a month or something.
I kind of lately. I've been enjoying the pro jiu-jitsu. It's been fun to kind of enjoyable to watch. And then,
like the CXBJJ
Adam
stuff.
Sella.
Yeah.
I've been on that.
I've been on it twice.
You fought on that?
Mm-hmm. That's where that picture's from right there.
How'd you do?
I lost both.
we gotta get worse opponents.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the first one, man, it was a tough match, lost by decision. I mean, it was just basically the whole thing was a wrestling match. I should have pulled guard looking back on it now, but I was just trying to take him down. I think I shot 7 times in the match, and he caught me in one of the times. He threw me in a guillotine, and he had me there for like 30, 40 seconds, and I popped my head out, and I think that's what won the match for him, is because he had me in a guillotine. That was like the only.
So it was no points.
Yeah, it was submission only, and then the second one.
That's really not a loss.
No, I mean, I felt.
I don't. That's the way that happens all the time.
You know, I was like the only one really attempting anything. He was just being very defensive the whole time. And then the second match.
That was just a weird one.
Oh God! So it's like this. There's a guy down in 10th Planet guy, and I found out now that this is like his thing. He's like really good from the scarf hold position, but he got me. I took him down past his guard, and then we reset right at the edge of the mat, and then we reset, and I was in topside control, and he immediately like threw me in this like weird like Americana with his leg, like shoved my arm in between his legs and like put me in this like Americana position, and I mean my arm popped and everything, and I didn't see it coming.
Yeah,
so I got submitted from the top of side
There's
control.
always tricky stuff people know. You know, you don't even have to be very good. If you know a couple tricky moves, you have a chance to win some.
Yeah, we were talking after, my coach, he's like, that's the kind of move you get stuck in one time. You know, like that's not something once you see that one coming, you know it's coming, and you should be able to defend that. Now that I know, hopefully I don't think I should ever get stuck in anything like that again. But yeah, we got another BJJ coming up here pretty soon. You guys got
May.
Yeah, in May, you guys got anybody fighting on that one?
I think Jess Stritzel.
Okay. Oh yeah, he's going against my best friend Nick.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be it. I'll be at fights at an MMA fight show. I think. I don't know. I don't remember if we have anybody from my gym. He's from Stritzel's from Rodrigo's gym.
Okay.
Baggy's gym.
And he's an animal. That kid. I mean, how old is he? He's like 20 years old.
17.
17.
Dude,
Holy shit.
And he just beats everybody.
He beats everybody.
Good. He's very good. I mean,
he's unbelievable. And he'll do like 20 matches in a day.
Really?
He can win AGF or Fuji by him. He could place by himself easily.
Oh yeah.
They let him get in every division, and he closes them all out.
Yeah, wins out and wins most of it by submission.
Yeah. So now I think he needs to start moving up to like the pan and things like that.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
I think part of the deal was, there was nobody at the pans to go with at his age.
Yeah, I feel like the age has got to be a problem.
That was an issue.
That's a limiting factor for him.
I think that was a limiting. I don't know. It's something to do with the rules. With your promotions. I don't understand it. That's a Kirk Huff question.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I have questions about the jiu-jitsu, I go to Kirk.
Yeah.
You know Kirk?
Yeah, I do. I've met him a couple times. I want to get him on here, actually. I was talking to Arian about getting him on here, too, and reaching out. I was talking to him in the sauna, well, before the Arnold Club Fitness closed because of the storms, but I talked to see Kirk every once in a while there, and there was one day where we were talking in the sauna for a while. But yeah, he's a real nice guy. I'd like to get him on here. Kirk's been on that a handful of times.
On what?
The CXBJJ.
Oh yeah.
Yep. We got like 4 or 5 guys from our gym on it. So I'm excited. I'm definitely going to be there. Important.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't usually match those. Usually my guys just get on there, and I don't even know how. I'm not exactly the most engaged right now with some of the things at the gym.
Yeah.
So, but I've been enjoying go and watch those. Of course, I like to go watch Mason because he's so good.
Yeah, for sure.
He's got a little brother that's really good too.
How long has he been training? Probably his whole
Probably
life.
5 or 6 years, 7
That's
years.
it?
That's a long time.
I mean,
that's
17. Yeah, I guess that's when you're 17.
Yeah.
He seems like one of these kids who have been doing it since he was like.
He probably was. I don't know. He was young.
Yeah.
He's not from my gym really. He's from Rodrigo's gym, so he just comes and visits us and trains. He comes in to get some good. We have a lot of MMA fighters that are pretty good at jiu-jitsu that are good roles for him. We're young guys. So that's why he comes in. But other than that, I'm not involved with his promotions, anything like that.
I saw recently you guys just had for his last fight, Joaquin Buckley training out of your guys'
he's training
gym
now. He was
training
still there last night?
Was he?
Yeah.
How long has he been training out of yours for?
He trained before he got in the UFC for like a year, and then he left, and then
he went to Michigan or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was training at Finney's when I first started.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in 2018 or so.
Yeah.
I remember seeing him in the gym. I think I rolled with him one time in the jiu-jitsu class. But yeah, I mean, I was brand new.
Yeah, he trains with us now. I don't know what days he trains because I'm not really I'm not as involved, like I said. So,
Yeah.
you know, he was there last night. We worked over. I was able to work on a couple of things with him, but I'm not like in charge of his camp or anything like that. I just kind of like if I see something, I might say something.
Or
But-
did you corner for him in his last fight?
No.
No.
No, one Jeff Henry is one of my
Okay.
other coaches. He's basically runs his camp.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, really, Buck runs his own camp, but we just kind of facilitate. You know, like, what do you want to work on? Let's do it. And
That's cool. Does he have a fight lined up? Buckley?
I think he's fighting Usman.
That's
I'm
right.
not
Usman.
sure though.
Yeah, I saw that. That's right.
I don't know if it's official. Probably is. Like I said, I don't ask him. You know, he just comes in. He comes in and trains, and you know, we set guys up for him. And if he has questions, I ask him. I answer them for him. I'm helping out with his jiu-jitsu and a little bit, but mostly it's Jeff. And then he goes to St. Louis boxing with a guy named Reggie. He does a lot of striking with him. So, yeah, we've been lucky to get him back because, you know, he's at the top of the game.
Yeah, he is. I mean,
he could be the champion. So
really
That's
could.
pretty
it'd be
sweet.
fun to have him. And Woodley's in the gym too. So,
Oh, really?
you know, they're both in the gym. He's injured now, but
Woodley is?
yeah.
I thought, didn't he have something lined up with on that
GFL.
GFL? But that just like fell apart, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, you know, because
Yeah.
I'm not on the inside of any of that stuff. So I just, you know,
Yeah, they had like a bunch of fights lined up that like were getting everybody excited. Like like Dylan Dennis, Tony Ferguson.
yeah, I
a couple
kind of
other
felt
ones.
like it might.
Take off.
Yeah, I thought, well, hell, you know, they got good show. They have a good show.
Yeah,
So, you know, if they can
I would
they can make it
have
happen. Yeah, I would have watched it too, you know, and I had another fighter, Julius Anglicus,
Yeah,
he's on
I
it
know
too.
him. I've met him before.
So he was set up to fight on it. And I think I don't know when, but he was set up to fight on it as well. I don't really know what's going on with that now.
Well, maybe they'll figure it out. But yeah,
I mean, we need something else because right now, like you can only
it's like UFC or nothing.
yeah, it's
you
just
know?
UFC, and it's not really, you know, you could be the best fighter, and they may not want you. It's not like the NFL. Well, they're going to pick the best players because they want to win. UFC just picks they have the best fighters in the world, but they also pick guys that aren't the best fighters because they don't have. It's not. They have to entertain. They don't have to get the best product. They do have the best product, but they don't have to sign all the best fighters because they don't. You know, they have no competition as far as that goes.
Right, they really don't. I mean, now even when Bellator and PFL have like combined, right? But even that, I still couldn't.
I don't know what's going on.
I
with
don't.
those guys.
I don't either. And it's
They're-
like I still couldn't. I mean, I could name a handful of Bellator fighters, but like not.
Man, Bellator had it. They were, you know, they dropped the ball because they had, you know, Paramount owned them.
Mm-hmm.
They had it, you know, they just didn't market anything. And, you know, it just didn't seem like the behind scene because we had a lot of guys on Bellator, way more than in UFC. And behind scene guys worked their ass off, but you know, there was just seemed like there was no promotion.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, how are you going to stay afloat if you just don't have promotion? They paid well too. And I think for a while, some of their weight classes were better in UFC.
Yeah.
You know, I think 205 was better than UFC when the champ was out of there at the UFC and Nemkov was in and you know, Corey Anderson and
Yeah, who was it that just
Pitbull?
fell in the lap? Yeah, Pitbull.
yeah, I mean, he's past his prime, but yeah,
Right,
so
'cause he lost.
Yeah, he lost,
Yeah.
but I mean, it was a good.
It was him against.
but like that was the
Yair,
thing. It
right?
was like he got submitted, right? I think, or no, he got.
I think it was TKO. I wanna
Yeah,
say.
um,
Yair Rodriguez.
but like it was one of those. What I think we were because we were watching it. Didn't they call it earlier? Or they called it quit.
I don't know, but he's got a lot of
Yeah.
hours on him.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it's not
He's
the
definitely
same.
past his prime.
Not the same guy,
For
you
sure.
know. So you know, I mean, UFC of course had better fighters, but but Bellator had some weight classes that would compete or were a little better. It's 205 was one of them, and maybe 155. Strikeforce, whenever UFC bought Strikeforce, they had a better lineup, I think, than
Yeah.
UFC did.
Yeah,
They
back
had
in
a
the
pretty
day.
awesome lineup back then.
Yeah, but when did Strikeforce close? I mean, that or like fold? Because that was
That was in like 2000. I don't know.
Yeah, I
10
want to say
or
it was like
11,
11 or
something.
something. Yeah, I want to say it was because that's where like Woodley came from and a couple other guys like that, right? And then they went from there into the UFC.
Yeah, the Diaz brothers.
Yeah, the Diaz
they had
brothers.
they had a better. In
Anthony
the Strike
Pettis.
Force, the owners of Strike Force are the same people that ran Bellator, and they just lost their. They had all the money. They had all the. They just lost. I think they just lost their incentive to make a big show, or they didn't. They had all the tools. They just didn't do it.
Yeah,
So,
well,
but the Strike Force, they did it.
like Strike Force is a much better name.
I did too. It's a really cool. It's a really cool name.
It's a great name.
Everything about Strike Force was cool. I thought.
Yeah, Bellator. It's like that. It sounds like it's like a mythical creature.
Right. Yeah. It's not. It wasn't quite. And there was Bellator. And back then, you had Bellator, Strike Force, and UFC, and maybe one.
Yeah.
So there was lots of, not one. Pride.
Yeah.
And there was lots of opportunities for fighters, and now it's going down a little bit less.
Yeah.
But locally, we've got some pretty good stuff going on with like Nemesis and what are some of the other ones? Shamrock.
Yeah, I mean, it's a local scene,
Right?
It's not like
It's not anywhere like those, but it's still
they're good shows.
Yeah,
it's just it's a feeder for everybody else, and UFC. If you start getting big, UFC picks you up and puts you on their
Contender.
Not on Contenders, but on I'm talking about shows.
Oh,
they put
LFA
they put you on the LFA or all these shows. They put them on their UFC TV.
Oh yeah, the Fight Pass.
The Fight Pass. So
Yeah.
it kind of keeps them from getting too big.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, let's get the UFC TV, but then they don't make it. That's as far as they go.
Right. Yeah. Not a lot of people have those. UFC, the UFC Fight Pass. I mean, some people do, but.
Well, I'm talking about the show. The show, that's as far as the show goes. They don't have they're not making a bundle of money. They're making enough to survive, and UFC makes the money off of them. So we don't see new. I mean, it'd be nice to see another Strike Force or a Bellator come up, or PFL figure out how to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they're making money. I think they're doing a lot of shows over Europe.
Oh, really?
I think I don't even pay attention.
I
Truthfully,
don't
I don't have
either,
anybody
to be
doing it.
honest. Like
I know very little about it.
The only organization I'd really pay attention to is UFC, and I feel like I follow like one on Instagram, and I'll see like the highlights and stuff, but it's like I really don't know any of the fighters, like a couple of them. And
Well, UFC is for sure the best.
Oh, for sure.
Most
Absolutely.
entertaining. They got the best announcers. They got
Right.
yeah, it fights pretty much every weekend.
right.
I mean, there's always. I mean, it's
Yeah.
It's weird when there's a weekend that goes by where there's not even a fight night where you can just throw them on Saturday night when you're at home.
Yeah.
Well, you got Kansas City. Was it Kansas
Yeah,
City
we
this
got a
weekend?
good one this weekend.
Yeah.
Evan Elder's Evan's fighting on it. Evan's a friend of ours, and looking forward to. Do you know? Have you ever met him?
Yeah.
Evan Elder.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah. I didn't. He's fighting a guy named Young, I think.
Yeah, it was like a last second replacement. Because he was supposed to fight someone else, and then I think they changed it like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Because I think that guy got like in some sort of legal trouble or something
I don't know.
and got arrested. So now they had to replace him with someone else. I don't know. Nick, somebody sent me the article and I read it. But yeah, something happened. I don't know. Looking forward to it though. It should be a good card this weekend.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to you. In the gym and training and everything, in all your years of doing this, is there something that, you see in a fighter that kind of separates someone who's like going to be great for someone who's going to be just kind of average? You've trained some,
I think work ethic, and consistency. There's a lot of guys, a lot of the best, guys with the most talent don't do anything because they don't stay consistent. They don't do what it takes to be a champion. Like Buckley, he's got all the talent and he has all the work ethic. He works his ass off every day. He's working out twice a day. And then, so if you got to find a guy that has a talent, and then they have to have the work ethic.
Right.
That's what you're looking for. Right now I'm just kind of looking, I'm not really looking for for anything. It's like I got Buckley and I'm not even motivated to do that right now, just a little bit,
Yeah.
I'll definitely go watch his fight, I'll go to the show. That was fun. Being able to go corner, I didn't corner him, but go to the show. That's fun. Yeah. So, you have to be consistent. That's the biggest thing. You have to stay consistent. You can't like be, come in for a week, next week you don't come in. That consistency is the most important thing, I think. Because even if you don't have a lot of talent, if you're consistent, you can get pretty decent.
I feel that's a pretty good lesson for life in general.
Yeah. With me, I'm in a diet. I got to be consistent.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Me too.
So, I mean, right now you mentioned that you're not all that motivated to be in the gym and you're not in the coaching and stuff like that. Is that more due to focusing on your family and
Yeah, I
your
think
kids?
mostly it's just focusing on my kids.
Yeah.
And I do, and plus, the roofing deal is
Right.
crazy right now
Yeah.
too.
Right.
I'm every day I got a roof going on right now, so it's doing that and then making sure I do what I need to do for my kids at night after school. That's a big deal. So, but now my son's getting older, so he can kind of jump in. He's been jumping in the MMA classes. I don't really let him spar, like boxing spar yet too much, So he's just does grappling, but he can do the MMA classes where we have the little gloves and you don't really punch. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the kids getting punched.
In the face.
Yeah.
I feel like it's, I mean, what age would you say is it's like acceptable to start sparring, in your opinion?
I don't know. I just leave it up to the parents.
Yeah.
I tell the parents, like, I've had people like not come to the gym because I don't let their kids spar. Sorry,
Right.
it's just
That's
not
a liability.
I mean, I'm not even worried about I'm mostly just, for me, I just don't want to, it's not that important. I guess being around in MMA, you don't see it nearly as much, but being around boxing so much, seeing so many of the boxing coaches, that sparred for 20 years.
You can tell.
You can tell.
Yeah.
You can tell talking to them, it's like, I don't want my son to be
Punch drunk.
Well, especially with what they're finding out now about CTE and things like that. It's just, it's crazy how little damage it takes to the brain to cause serious damage. I mean, I'm a product of 6 concussions, but that was from playing hockey.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up playing hockey, football, and baseball, but like football was crazy. It was a crazy sport, but I never got any concussions from playing football. It was all hockey related stuff.
Yeah.
And
I think the faster you're moving, the more space you have between people. So football, you might getting a concussion might be more for like running backs, wide receivers, defensive backs, and then the offensive line maybe a little less because there's 2 steps and they hit each other.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're running, 12 miles an hour at another guy running 12 miles an hour, I don't know how fast people can run.
Yeah, I don't know. I could
and
probably run 12 maybe.
and you're boom. That's where the concussions come from, I
yeah.
think. Or if you're standing still and someone's running full speed at you and hits you, that's where the concussions come
you got
from.
all these people
and
that
hockey
are
would be the same thing.
Yeah.
Because you guys are moving fast.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's
real
what's
fast.
what's crazy
Hit
is
each other into walls.
I mean, they've made a lot of changes to these sports to help protect that. And you hear about all these people that are bitching about the olden days of sports where it was just so much more physical. But
they were slower,
Right.
And they weren't as strong,
Yeah.
and they weren't as athletic, and they didn't do it year round.
Right.
Even the pro guys, they would just they would play hockey during the season, and then the rink would close down. Because there was only probably one, then the rink would close down for summer, and the guys would smoke cigarettes and drink beer and deliver mail for somebody or work at a someplace, bartend or something, and then they get back into it. Now the guys like you, or I can see you're strong as hell. You look, you're probably fast, you're big, and you're doing it 20, year round.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're not getting, these guys they're healthier in some ways because they understand, they're not healthier. They're more fit and more trained up.
Right.
But, you don't train the brain to get stronger. I don't think it's just like your neck gets stronger. So your head doesn't
wobble around
as much, but it's like,
there's no
that's
way
the
to train
difference.
that muscle and strengthen
were
your
those
brain.
guys tougher? No, hell no. They weren't tougher. They were just different. They just didn't have the knowledge that we did. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the training. They didn't have any of the stuff we have now. And next generation is gonna be the same thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Just evolving. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, especially you, since you started training jujitsu in the 90s. Like when it was still such a niche thing. I mean, just seeing the evolution of, I mean, just jujitsu over the last, 25, 30 years has got to be crazy.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see where it started, and where it's at now, and like just how the game has evolved.
Yeah, and the thing about jiu-jitsu players, they're all so clever, smart people.
Right.
Like it's not like us meathead wrestlers and boxers, not quite as smart. The jiu-jitsu guys tend to be like the chess players and the, engineers and, and they're thinking about it all day and coming up with stupid, ridiculous stuff that lock you down and move your, because they're not as athletic maybe. And
you can't pass your guards and start locking your legs up.
Oh man. And it's just gotten, I mean, they're smarter people in jiu-jitsu. So in my opinion, and the jiu-jitsu is the levels are just getting higher and higher, and it's hard to keep up with it all.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes like I'll see these videos of like some kids on, on Instagram where they're doing like just these crazy techniques, right? Like berimbolo and like, like,
I'm not berimboling anybody.
No,
I'm not
me either.
I'll put my forehead in your chin and you're not going to get underneath me.
Right. Exactly. Smash.
So,
it's just crazy to see how it's evolved.
Yeah. It's really involved. Like the moves it's not even it's the same sport, but it's just so different, from when I started, there wasn't, that nobody did footlocks because that was
it was seen as like a bitch move, right?
Yeah, like you're gonna fall back and grab my foot.
Yeah. Now it's like, I mean, that's a lot of people just base their whole game off of that,
right?
And it's like not particularly my game, but like
I don't really like it, honestly. I mean, I think everybody should have it in their game, but it's kind of boring.
Yeah,
but I mean, that doesn't mean you can't. Right. I'm not putting people down. For me, I'm just talking about for me.
Yeah.
If one of my guys is a foot locker, I'll be happy. I'm
That's
giving them like, hey, that's awesome, man. you know, good for you. But for me, it's not as much fun for me to watch, and you don't get it in like MMA quite as much. It's like a last ditch effort. Like I'm getting my ass kicked, I'm gonna go for a foot lock.
Yeah, well, there's very few positions in MMA, like especially in like a leg lock positions where you can't get punched. Where where you're on the bottom of a guy and you can just. Right. I mean, there's a handful of leg lock positions where you can be kind of safe a little bit, but for the most part, you're in punching range for sure.
It happens, But if you have the foot lock in, then the guy can't punch you because he's got to defend.
Right.
So, but doesn't quite. You're not gonna give up top position usually to go to bottom in MMA. It's just not particularly. The scoring doesn't help. It's 5-minute rounds. Just doesn't. Unless you're losing, you don't want to do that. Like jumping guard for guillotines and stuff. Like you can do it if you're losing. It's a good idea.
It's like a Hail Mary kind of thing.
Yeah, you have to. And it's a great option if you're getting your butt kicked. Go ahead and pull guard. If you're not going to knock the guy out, you can't take him down, but you might submit him. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. Go for it.
Right. Yeah, fight to your strengths.
Yeah, versus same thing. Yeah, same thing with the footlock. It's not like it's a jiu-jitsu move, but jiu-jitsu. Not all jiu-jitsu moves are going to be applicable to MMA.
Right. Well, I mean, the whole name of the game, MMA and competition jiu-jitsu, is get on top, stay on top. At least that's how I look at it. If I'm on bottom, I'm trying to get on top because I have way more options to submit you and all of my better submissions come from when I'm in the top position. And I would think most people are the same way. Unless you are like a leg lock guy or some guy that's just got a crazy good like closed guard. But most of the time you want to be on top.
Yeah. I mean, it depends who you are, but you like John Thomas used to be with us. He's going to be on the bottom.
Yeah.
He could be like, he's good everywhere, but he's probably most likely going to pull guard and either try and submit you or sweep you. That's how he's going to, because he's probably not going to get a takedown.
Right.
So.
Yeah, for kids, for you, getting your son into wrestling and jiu-jitsu and everything, would you recommend kids start with wrestling or jiu-jitsu?
I would just whatever they want to do. I think if you can only do one thing, it's jiu-jitsu. You're going to do jiu-jitsu. If you can, because if you watch the first UFCs, you can see that jiu-jitsu is the best. If you can only know one thing.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to do that anymore. But I would, if my son was like, hey, I can only do one thing, I would say jiu-jitsu. Starting with, I think depends on what, you don't have to start with nowadays you don't have to start with, you can do both at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 young boys. My oldest is 3 and my youngest is 10 months. So it's like I'm wanting to get them into like wrestling or jiu-jitsu in the next, handful of years, by the time they're,
you
in
gotta
school
let them decide for it, because if you force them to do it, they'll hate it. My son didn't start till he was like 11,
Okay.
and he's pretty good at it now, but he wasn't going to do it before. He was like, I'm not going in there. Forget about it, Dad.
Yeah, what's scary?
So now he's like, in 3 years, he's now practicing with the pros.
It's cool.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So I didn't push him into it, but the other thing I do is I make him lift weights. So he lifts weights, I think twice a week. So if you have kids, at that age, you'll want them in, like, in my opinion, you want to put them in like gymnastics or dance. Definitely swim lessons.
Yeah, we're doing swimming right now.
Swim right now.
And things where they can kind of
figure out their body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, get their motor skills going. I don't think it's as important to get them right away into jiu-jitsu. I think they can get as much out of doing gymnastics as they can jiu-jitsu when they're 5.
Yeah.
I don't, they're going to get stronger. And a lot of my stuff for my kids program, we don't have a big kids program, but is, at the beginning is gymnastics oriented, beginning. So yeah. What's first, I would do them both at the same time. I would do jiu-jitsu, and then I would have my kid do wrestling during wrestling season and quit jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then let them decide how much they're going to. After that, you can wrestle pretty much year round if you want to. But when they're younger, you make them do both, and then as they get older, they can decide what they want.
Does he play?
Yeah, what they want to pursue. Like my son is, I think right now he likes jiu-jitsu better. So.
It's a lot more fun.
Yeah,
to be honest,
it's easy. Well, it's easier.
It's a lot easier. Like, cause
Yeah.
the wrestling is it's such a grind.
Yeah.
And there's so many. I just feel like wrestling has a different culture than jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like the wrestling culture is just a lot more brutal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just
You're right about that. For sure.
I look back at all my like high school wrestling practices and like how tough they were, and in jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of like times where you can kind of hang out a little bit and rest. Like if I've got someone in my guard or something, like, okay, I can take a breath, catch my breath for a second. Like wrestling, I feel like there's none of that. It's just, if you're the second you're on the bottom, you got to be trying to get up, get back to your feet, score again.
You're not going to find 50-year-olds wrestling, but you'll find 50-year-olds doing jiu-jitsu.
Yes. Yeah.
It's easier on the body. Everything's easier.
Yes.
Everything. Except for, getting choked.
Yeah.
It's not much fun, but you can tap. There's always an easy way out.
Yeah,
Right.
easy way out. Yeah.
So,
I went back and helped in my high school wrestling a few years ago. It was during COVID, and things got kind of weird where they were wanting us to take like COVID tests every week and stuff. But anyway, I went back there and helped because one of the coaches reached out to me and he saw that I was still training actively and everything. And like, yeah, we don't have any 170-pound, like all of our whole team was pretty much seniors and they all just graduated. So now we've got, all freshmen and sophomores, and we have like one senior and in like no juniors. And so he's like, we need some some training partners. Would you want to come in and help coach and train? And that was the first time going back to wrestling after training jiu-jitsu for, a handful of years. And I'm like, it reminded me like how much more brutal a lot of this stuff
majority's
is.
on your feet.
Yeah.
Where jiu-jitsu, the majority's on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
especially, most gyms start on their knees rolling.
Yeah.
Some start standing up.
Yeah, we do a mixture,
But I think most of it's on starting in the ground, on the ground.
A lot of it's, seated versus standing.
I'd say 90% of gyms start on the ground.
Yeah, it's
always.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it has to do, actually, I don't know. It could be a space thing, but I think a lot of people just don't want to wrestle too. But I'm thankful that we do start from the feet a lot at our gym, which is just, being a former wrestler, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Judo's every bit as rough as wrestling.
Oh,
so
100%.
that's basically what you're doing when you start and stand up in
gi.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a handful of guys that, one of our purple belts at the gym, he's also he's a black belt in judo, and he's a handful. And but a lot of the guys have started training judo at his judo school. So there's 4 or 5 guys that I train with all the time. They've been, training judo 2 or 3 nights a week for the last 6 months, and it's noticeable.
What judo school is it?
White Dragon.
I think that's the only one in St. Louis, pretty much. It used to be Kirkwood.
Yeah.
Kirkwood Judo was the big one before that. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember there were
I
some
don't even know
guys
if I think they were at Finney's.
Finney's, yeah, they were at Finney's when I was there.
And that's just straight throwing people down, like right?
Yeah, it's like
straight landing
landing.
100 times.
Yeah.
You know, every practice get thrown and land
yeah, it
100
just
times.
sounds-
It's hard.
Yeah.
Very hard on your body.
Judo's not for wussies.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. No, you know, you're hitting people with the earth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's fun when you get to be the
The
guy's
thrower.
thrower,
Yeah.
but you have to get thrown as many times and you land so many times. Like, it's so much easier to go live than it is to drill in judo.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, because you're not going to get thrown as much.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Judo's not for the weak.
No,
you know,
not at
so
all. Not at
That's
all.
why it's not popular.
Yeah.
There's only one gym in judo.
Yeah.
And
I got how many jiu-jitsu schools
I got
Right.
judo class in my gym and nobody goes to it. So you know how much most people will do wrestling instead of judo because it's easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, easier than judo.
I mean, it's a good skill to have, but damn.
I guess, you know, we're saying, well, this is easier than that and that's easier than
Yeah.
that. But, you know, like, they're all like, depends what you're good at.
Right.
You know, if you're really good at wrestling, then judo's going to, then jiu-jitsu might suck, and definitely boxing would suck, you know, because you can't grab the guy and throw him down. So,
Right.
you know, it's all relative to what you're good at.
Yeah.
And what's hardest, you know, and who you're going against, maybe.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, if all things equal, wrestling and judo are the hardest.
I agree.
Now, with your son, does he play any other sports? Or do
He
you
plays
have,
football.
do you have two kids?
I have a daughter.
Daughter.
All she does is dance.
Dance,
I can get her to do those those every minute on the minutes every now and then.
So are you
Yeah.
a dance
But-
dad now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Learning those routines with her?
That's where most of my money goes. Yeah. Does that count as a dance dad?
Yeah.
Because jiu-jitsu is much cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than, I make her do, like, she makes 3 classes a month.
Mm.
You know, so I don't even get to see her as much as I don't get to see her nearly as much as my son. So
And then you said your son also plays football.
he plays football, and he just started this year as his first year because he kept asking, and I was
One of those.
I don't want you to play football.
Yeah.
You know,
How'd he
but
do?
finally I'm like, all right, play
Yeah.
football, and now he's the quarterback.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're terrible. They're the worst team.
What school is it?
Francetown North.
Okay.
Okay.
They got a new coach. Their old coach wasn't bad. Just like, you know, I think whenever you're in a school, you know, and the team's not good, then all the kids start saying the team sucks and everything. It's hard to
Negative.
get out of that hole
Yeah.
because none of the kids want to play because they don't want to get their butt kicked.
And they don't want to be on the losing team.
Right.
It's way more fun to
Right.
join the winning team.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes it harder for the coach, you know, and then if the administrators don't put emphasis on getting coaches in the building as teachers, you know, to me, if all things are equal, one person will coach, the other person won't, hire the one that coaches so you can get those kids into sports.
Yeah.
I think sports are so important. But I think they have missed that at Francetown North. But I think they have a new principal, a new AD, everything's new there. So I don't know. They have a good wrestling coach there.
Are you the wrestling coach there?
No. Two of my students are coaches there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
And actually, like, I got a lot of students that are coaching in different high schools, all the Howell schools.
Oh, that's cool. Is it kind of cool to see your former students kind of step into that role?
I love watching
Yeah,
it. Yeah. I mean, it's a different sport than what I'm teaching them, but they were
Right.
already wrestlers before I got a hold of them.
What is it? The student becomes the sensei or whatever.
Yeah, the
Yes.
student becomes the teacher. or
Yeah,
whatever, yeah.
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 I think you just learn more. You become more fun because that's what I did when I was playing baseball. I'd give pitching lessons, and I would become a better pitcher because I was teaching it versus.
Yeah, I agree with that for
Yeah,
sure.
I taught the beginners class at Kyle's gym for about 2.5 years until my second son was born back in June, and I just noticed a big level up in my game when I started teaching.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be a elite competitor and teach.
Mm-hmm.
You
Just
know,
a time,
but
yeah, it's a time thing.
but it also makes you better as a teacher, as a coach.
Yeah.
It makes you better.
And I enjoyed it. It was fun to see somebody that, maybe at the beginning of the week, they couldn't figure out this thing and they looked really sloppy doing it.
It's fun watching them, right?
Yeah.
Whenever they're doing something, you're like, oh man, I showed them that.
Yeah.
And like from the difference between Monday and Friday, and I was like, oh my gosh, like you look like a completely different person doing this move than you did on Monday. Like it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
It's just like that. That was like one of my favorite things about coaching. Is just like seeing someone like going from not even being able to move their body in this way, shape, or form, and now they're a handful of days later and they're hitting this move and it looks good.
Yeah.
And
that's a great feeling. Yep.
No, for sure.
I love that.
Now, with your son, with coaching him, do you have, is that difficult coaching him? Cause I know like as a kid growing up, no one really listens to their parents. I mean,
I don't push him too hard. So he doesn't fight back on much. Plus, I'm the coach at the gym and like the fighters listen to me. So what's he gonna do? And I don't overcoach anything. Okay. I don't overcoach anybody. I like if I'm running a practice, I don't spend a lot of time changing people's. If I see, I might show one. I might, if it's a live practice, I might correct one person one time. Yeah. Because I'm not. I hated that when I was I was like, not everything has to be. I don't overcoach. I don't like people that overcoach that just feel like they got to find something wrong every time they watch someone roll and correct them. Mm-hmm. It just, that bugs me. It used to bug me when I was a fighter too. So I don't overcoach. I just kind of, unless it's a glaring mistake, I just, hey, keep going. You're doing good. They'll figure out I'll teach maybe, or next day I'll teach that move. Like, okay. Then they'll see, like, okay, that maybe wasn't perfect, but it was right. Plus, everybody does these things their own way. So, if I teach an arm bar, they might find a little intricate thing that works for them that I wouldn't work for me.
Sure, like a different
just leave it alone.
Or a different, different something that it's like, well, your body, you're a little more flexible than me. You've got this. My body doesn't move like that.
Right.
Kind of thing.
So I mean, I don't overcoach him either. Yeah. So and a lot of the things I'm very lucky that I have a lot of students, and I'll say, hey, go grab Lucas and show him this. Do this with him, and so they'll grab him. And so as a dad, I'm lucky to have that, I have had so many coaches at the gym, so I can always find someone to show them. And I do that with the fighters too. Like if I see something wrong, I might say, I might not correct them at the time that I see him making the mistake, but I'm like, hey, Jake, so-and-so needed to do this and this. Go show them how to do it right. So, but yeah, I think the key definitely with your kids is not overcoaching them. Not correcting them. I don't give them corrections all the time. They figure it out. And he's smart. He's smarter than me. So that helps too. Yeah. I know he's smarter than me. So it's like, he figures a lot of stuff out on his own.
Yeah. Well, that too, and you're not going to push them out of the sport that way. I mean, you see a lot of parents that are trying to coach from the sidelines, and then they're giving their 2 cents afterwards, and it's just pushing kids out of the sports that they're falling in love or that they're playing. Right. I mean, everybody would always ask me like, why was I able to succeed at baseball? And parents were always asking me this, never the kids, but the parents. And I was just like, well, because my parents didn't know shit about baseball. They just got me set up with the right coaches and trusted them, and they wouldn't critique my game. They allowed me to play the game, but they were just my biggest fans. They didn't coach. So like with hockey and football, those were my dad's sports. So like he would always be on the sidelines coaching and stuff like that, and it just kind of pushed me away from those sports. Yeah. But with baseball, I mean, they didn't know shit. So it was great. So I didn't have to worry about that. But you got all these parents now that are just like, you got to focus on this one sport, and I'm going to put all my money and effort into it. I'm like, fuck that. I want them to play multiple sports. Right. That's how they're going to stay athletic, and that's how they're going to learn to maneuver, like you said, control of their body with gymnastics and things like that. But
as they get older, they can start to kind of specialize. I don't know that. See, that's, that navigating that as a parent, helping them decide what's going to be best for them, what sport's going to be best for them, especially if they're good at all. Like you were probably good at all 3 sports. Mm-hmm. I guess you're probably really good at all 3. And trying to decide which one to do, which one to spend more time doing. Right. That's the hardest part for me right now, trying to figure out, because he's smart and he's athletic. He's not like super athletic, but he has some advantages that he's been lifting weights and stuff, so he's he's stronger than most kids.
Well, and if he's 14 years old rolling with professional MMA fighters, you know, he's
he's not beating their ass. Right?
but
that's a learning
he's in there with him.
He's in there with him. He can hang
that's
with
a confidence builder.
That's something.
Yeah, he can jump in with them, but like they're not
going full clip against a 14-year-old. I get that, but like if you're in there with them, moving around, like that's something. That's more than what most 14-year-olds are doing. So I mean, that's definitely saying something, right? Yeah,
there. He's definitely got advantages.
Yeah,
because we have the gym.
Yeah,
so no,
for sure.
So he can do things, and I don't have to overcoach him because I can. And I do coach his football team, but I don't know much about football, so I just keep my mouth shut. You know, the coaches want me there because I can. Listen to them. I can do a little bit of the rah-rah, but I also can listen to the coaches and they tell me what to do and then I go coach it.
Yeah.
You know, because they know more than me.
Right. So you never played football?
I did. I played in college but it's been so many years and honestly I wasn't a great football player and I'm not an aficionado of football. You know, I don't watch football anymore. I don't. So you know, the other coaches are better than me, so I'm keeping my mouth shut. You know, but my son likes me out there, so I love that. So as long as he wants me out there, I volunteer because I make my own schedule, and I'll volunteer for the wrestling coach and dad his way too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know a little bit more about wrestling, and so, but so I'll volunteer at North next year for the wrestling club and team, and I'll just do what the coach tells me to do and help them out. And, their teams, I think they have a good coaching staff, so it's easy to stay out of the way.
Yeah.
You know?
Awesome.
Well, Mike, we're at an hour, so yeah, it's been great having you on here, man. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about before we get you out of here?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. You know, it's I'm not sure how many people you get to listen to me, but
hey, I'm sure we'll get plenty.
A couple people maybe. So yeah, I appreciate being on. If you guys ever need anything.
Awesome.
For sure.
Nice to meet you guys too.
It was really nice to meet you too, man. It's been great.
Oh, we like to end the show with one last question, kind of hit our guest by surprise. We call it the tombstone game. Here lies Mike. What do you want to say on your tombstone?
Says he's a Christian.
Okay.
That's it.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks again for coming on, and thanks to everybody that paid attention to the show. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button for us yet, please do so. That would help us out a ton. Click that like button as well. Comment what you thought below, and we will see you next time.